Hello, everybody. Thank you for waiting for a few minutes. This is Jay with Guilty of Crime. Can everybody hear me? I hope so. And I hope I can hear out of these headphones. All right, let me check. So tonight we are talking about Lori Vallow, and there's some of you, well, probably everybody seems to know about Lori Vallow. I'm going to assume so. And then we're going to be talking about her and a whole bunch of other things. We're going to connect dots on Lori Vallow and talk about her, Chad Daybell, and then we're going to talk about what's next for both of them. Because as you know, Lori Vallow, or you probably don't know, Lori Vallow is going to court right now. She's currently in Arizona. She's extradited from prison for her life sentences from Tylee and JJ, the murders of the children, along with Tammy Daybell. And she's got life sentences, so she's never getting out, but they still extradited her. Hang in there with me for a minute. I had to what up, everybody? Well, I'm trying to get these connected. I'm not actually sure if they are until I start listening to videos. So I will try to put something on. I want you guys to see something. And then after that, I will check my headphones because I rushed in really quickly here. I have a lot of cool stuff tonight. I want to show you. We're going to jump around, but then I'm going to tell you about, I'm going to tell you all about the whole story. I want you to see this nut job, Lori Vallow. She was just in a hearing recently in Arizona, and this lady's just nuts, right? She goes into a hearing like this. I'm going to show you now. Unbelievable. And then we'll jump back to the actual story, but I want you to see that she's still crazy as ever. But she wasn't found crazy. I don't want you to think that either. 'Cause hold on quick. She is my headphones actually work, so that's good. There it is. Let's get this going. Hey, my headphones work. All right. I'm going to get this on here. Now that my headphones work, I know I am good. All right. And let's do this one here so I can, no, I don't, not this one. I set one up so that I can still interact with you all and do the videos at the same time. So I'm not just sitting in the background in the dark. All right. Where did you go, lady? All right. Let me find this. I should have probably been a little more prepared, but you know, when you have kids and you and they ask you to do a bunch of stuff, then it's hard to really always time what you're doing. Hold on. Where, where is it? I can't find it. I wanted to show you the one of her in court just laughing away. All right, let's try this one. Let's try.
I think that's probably something that draws us all together.
So in November of 2019, when news that two children from a local Mormon family were missing, it immediately grabbed people's attention. Nate Sunderland is the managing editor of the East Idaho News.
People were interested in the story right from the beginning. We don't normally get missing kids news releases that are like this, and it just continued to get bigger and bigger.
16-year-old Tylee Ryan and her little brother, 7-year-old JJ Vallow, their smiles now on a missing poster, hadn't been seen in weeks, and their mother, Lori Vallow, apparently wasn't cooperating with police.
Typically, when a missing person is reported, it's the parents that call us. And so when we posted this story, I think people immediately knew that something was fishy.
Eventually, the FBI was brought in to help, and the story started to spread far beyond eastern Idaho.
You have two children who have vanished, and their mother, beautiful blonde Lori Daybell, doesn't seem interested in finding her own children. Immediately, the nation was captivated by this story.
Sorry about that.
JJ's grandparents, Larry and Kay Woodcock, were the first to sound the alarm. The Woodcocks had a special relationship with JJ.
JJ was in neonatal ICU, NICU, because he was born 2 pounds and 14 ounces, and he was 10 weeks premature. He was our baby from, just instant fall in love. That's what you do with grandkids. You just fall in love immediately.
JJ was adopted by Charles and Lori Vallow when he was 1. But before that, he lived with his grandparents, Kay and Larry.
He's autistic, so there's, they have issues.
Charles and Lori got him and had him in the special schools. His intelligence level was unbelievable.
Even though JJ went to live with Charles and Lori, the Woodcocks, Kay and Larry, were still a major part of JJ's life. The three of them would often talk on the telephone and FaceTime.
Charles Vallow died in July of 2019. After he passed, the Woodcocks and Lori had a falling out. But Larry and Kay still desperately wanted to see or at least talk to JJ. But Lori had essentially cut off communication.
I was emailing her and begging her, please, we will fly to Arizona. We will fly to wherever you are. Give us an hour with him.
The fallout between Lori and the Woodcocks was partially over money, $1 million. Before Charles Vallow died, he switched the beneficiary to his life insurance policy from Lori to his sister.
So I am going to tell you more about this before we actually get started. I wanted to actually hop on here and show her in court and then go back to this and kind of show you about the court appearance and how it's connected. But I think what we'll do is we'll watch this while I'm getting some other things ready. And if you guys are invested for a while with me, then I can certainly show a lot more. I have a lot for tonight. So yeah, Lori's very evil, and I have a whole bunch of things to tell you guys and to tie into it and show you this big picture of what's going on and who she killed and how they're connected. I have so much about it. So I'll run this as I'm getting things ready. We'll watch this for the people that haven't, and then I will tell you a story and I'll show you what's next with them, because they're never done. I mean, this case is never done. It's going to go for a while. So yeah, hang in there with me and we'll connect the dots.
K.
I didn't ask for that. He did it because he knew we were going to end up with JJ.
Yeah.
Or so he thought.
After Charles died, Lori essentially cuts out Larry and Kay from JJ's life. And remember, this little boy means the world to the Woodcocks. Eventually, they become so frustrated that they contact the Chandler, Arizona Police Department.
That call from Larry and Kay Woodcock would set off what would become a month-long search for JJ and his sister Tylee. Police tracked down the children's mother, Lori, in Rexburg, Idaho, where she had been living for nearly 3 months. There was no sign of JJ or Tylee, but Lori wasn't living alone. Her brother Alex had also moved to Rexburg at the same time and was renting a unit in the same complex. And in the apartment next door to Lori, her niece, Melanie Boudreau, who had come to Rexburg along with Alex and Lori, leaving her children behind in Arizona.
Lori and Lieutenant Vallow Police Department, how are you? You got a minute?
This is a recording of the first and only interaction between Lori and police, talking about the whereabouts of her children.
Are y'all alone, or does that help?
My brother's here.
So JJ would be where?
He's in Arizona.
Who's he with in Arizona?
He's with one of my friends in Arizona.
Lori would tell police that JJ was with a woman named Melanie Gibb, and his sister Tylee was off at college. Then she started to ramble.
It is very weird. I've had to move around a lot. One of my brothers is trying to kill me, not the brother that lives here, obviously. He's kind of my protector.
She even brought up Kay Woodcock and the $1 million.
What happened was my husband, who we were married for 15 years, and had raised all these 5 kids together, switched his life insurance policy to her, right? To his sister, who got $1 million when he died, and we got nothing. For me to raise JJ, and all the kids got nothing, and everybody got nothing.
That day, police also had a strange interaction with Lori's new husband, Chad Daybell, who
Oh, thank you. You're right. When I touch this new mic, sometimes it does that. So the reason I'm playing this is so you can see the faces of the people and hear the people and see them. And then I'm going to tie everything. I shouldn't be muted anymore. Guys, do you hear me? Unless I'm on a, am I still muted? I don't think so. Can y'all hear me? We're talking about Lori Vallow right now. Let me know if you can hear me so I can keep talking about it. And yeah, hit that like button so you can hear me now. If I touch this mic, sometimes it goes off. I'm showing you this to set this up so you can see how it's all connected. And then you can actually hear the things and see the people and just see this web of lies and the things that she's caused. So that's why I'm setting it up for you all.
at first claimed he didn't know Lori's phone number. It was obvious that something was wrong. So the next day, police returned with a search warrant, but Lori and her new husband, Chad, were gone.
There was food in the refrigerator, food in the pantry. Everything had been taken off the hangers, and there was no clothes in the dresser drawers.
Chad and Lori are gone, and it's clear that they left in a hurry. So for detectives, there's a new level of urgency for this matter, but they had no idea how twisted this case was about to become.
Coming up, Lori tracked down in Hawaii.
Where are your kids?
No comment.
No comment? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say?
Plus, Lori's new husband.
I love Nate from the Idaho News. He did an excellent job by tracking them down. And it was literally one of the things that got her in the spotlight and convicted, the way that she acted when he was saying, where are the kids? Where are the kids? And you could see this fat, porky pig, Chad Daybell, looking like the dad from he looks like a cartoon character. I don't think it's American Dad, but maybe Stewie's dad. And then when Lori Vallow gets a hold of him, she's a hairstylist. I haven't told you that because I'm going to go back to that and her younger days. So she gets a hold of him and gets his hair done, dresses him in these jeans, puts him on a diet. This literally happened. They have texts back and forth about her saying that she wants to make him, Family Guy. He looks like Family Guy Peter, Porky Pig, married to his wife for 20-umpteen years with 5 kids. And then Lori Vallow gets a hold of him and he does not look like this anymore, but he's still a boring dud of a guy. So I don't know how he becomes any kind of cult leader, or so to speak. Now, he was excommunicated from his church and because he thinks that he's a prophet. I don't think he does anymore, but I'm not going to tell you why yet.
Chad Daybell.
Living on the Edge of Heaven, where I tell more about my 2 near-death experiences and how that prompted me to write my novels.
And frustration grows.
Listen to how he talks.
Where the kids are.
And I'm also not going to play the entire thing because I don't want to get it kicked off, but I do want to show you some things and then I'll tie it together.
Lived on the island of Kauai for a few years with JJ and Tylee.
Now they're talking about
were going to go there and they were going to try to either make an arrest or try to force the issue of coming back to Eastern Idaho. We were able to go.
Did you do something to your children? Are your children still alive? That's a simple question. I've got 3 kids of my own. I can tell you every minute where my kids are at. Where are your children?
The video of Nate Eaton with East Idaho News questioning Chad and Lori immediately went viral, and it infuriated everyone who watched it because here's this mother who just didn't seem to care about where her children were.
Listen, just tell people what's happening. There's people around the country praying for your children, praying for you guys. Why don't you give us answers?
That's great.
Do you see how he looks now, everybody? And do you see what she said? She said, "That's great. That's great." You can see in the captions there, Nate Eaton was one of the big pushers of finding the kids, and he went all the way out to Hawaii to report on this story, and he found them poolside doing their thing, just hanging out while the kids were missing and unalived at the time. So you can see how he looks. He went from a cartoon character to this guy that she made him to be. So we'll play a little bit more and then I'll connect the dot. Both of them are actual psychos, and he's on trial soon for the kids being in his backyard. I'm all over the place, but I promise you I'll connect the dots.
Great.
That's great. That's great that they're praying for you, praying for your kids. What? You have nothing to say?
With Lori and Chad now located in Hawaii, prosecutors back in Idaho came up with a plan to bring Lori back by filing a child protection order.
It instructed her to bring her minor children to the Rexburg Police Department or the Department of Health and Welfare within 5 days of being served.
And there's body camera video of Lori being served with that order. She and Chad are sitting outside, laying next to the swimming pool.
Any questions? You have any questions for that?
Lori's in her bikini. Chad has his shirt off. They sure don't look like two people worried about missing children. And the book sitting next to Lori is called Visions of Glory, and it's about the end of the world.
A few weeks later, with still no sign of Tylee and JJ, Lori Vallow was taken into custody by Hawaiian police.
Was transported here to the Kauai Police Department headquarters and booked.
Okay, so we know kind of the story here. I'm going to put some other background on so I can connect it, and then we'll come back and tell the rest of it. I'll show more clips so you can see them. You get a good idea about what this story is about. You understand. I don't want to play the whole thing and then get kicked off without being able to tell my part of the story. So what I'll do is I'm going to put the background picture on there so you can see the web of people that were connected, and then I'll tell you about it. So let's stop sharing the other one and I'll show you the flow chart that I have here. And yeah, it's unbelievable. Let me go down this way so you can see it better. And I'm sure a lot of you know about this, but I don't know. And hello, lurkers, people that are coming by, please hit the like button. Everybody, share it if you can. Anything you can do that will help. Let me play this for a couple more minutes while I get my dog to stop whining at me, and then I'll get that flow chart up.
Booked in this our cell block where she stayed until she got taken to her court appearance earlier this morning.
First of all, Ms. Vallow, do you understand that a demand has been made for your surrender by the state of Idaho?
Yes. Lori's first court appearance in Hawaii was short. The judge set her bail for $5 million, and it was in front of a full courtroom. Sitting there in the second row in a white shirt, blue tie, her new husband, Chad Daybell.
Chad was there again in early March when Lori made her first court appearance back in Madison County, Idaho, wearing red lipstick and an orange and white jumpsuit. Also there, Larry and Kay Woodcock and Lori's son, Colby.
My whole plan is to try to go figure out a way to actually speak with her.
All right, so you're seeing bits and pieces, how it's unfolding, and I'll tell you now more, as well as these people are absolutely insane. She made him a different person. He enticed her, she enticed him, and then this whole world of theirs collapsed. It absolutely collapsed, and when it did, they took a bunch of people with them and brought them into this web. Not only did they bring them into this web, they also Well, you know what? She did not turn on him to this day, everybody. She has not turned on him at all. But has he turned on her? I'm not sure we completely know yet, but we'll find out. All right, if everybody can see that there, that's awesome. Let me see if I can zoom in a little more so I can show you the Lori Vallow. So it is Lori Vallow Daybell. She likes to keep the Lori Vallow Daybell name, and because she's so tied to him. So she was Lori Vallow, and then this whole story I'm going to tell you led them to Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell, all tangled up, and you'll see how. And yeah, I can still play. I'll still play more of it as long as I'm commenting on it. I will get through it, but I'm going to move around a bit and show you guys what is going on in this freaking crazy madhouse of a story. And then I'll move over there because those are the kids that I'm blocking on the bottom. So let me show you who's who and what in this crazy ass story. All right. So here is how it goes. And then I'll do a backstory on it. There's Lori Vallow, and she was living her life. Well, kind of crazy, but still living her life as LDS. And she has four husbands previous to Chad Daybell. So husband number one, Nelson Yanes. We don't know him. They don't show a picture of him. It's whenever they do show a picture of him, he's always blocked out. So I actually don't think that he wants to be seen, or obviously he doesn't, but I know there's something else going on there, and he completely doesn't want to be involved in this story. So we never see husband number one. Husband number two is William LaGoya. Now, William LaGoya is the father of Colby Ryan, and Colby Ryan is Tylee Ryan's brother and JJ Vallow's brother. Now, as you can see there, everybody that is intertwined with her and Chad, everybody that says dead is now dead. So we've got all these people that I'm going to tell you how they're mixed, and all these people that are mixed are dead because of Lori and Chad Daybell. So husband number two, the father of Colby Ryan, brother, sister, and brother. Husband number three, Joseph Ryan. Now Joseph Ryan is the father of Tylee Ryan, which is also Lori Vallow's other daughter that also is dead in 2019. Now, this is no coincidence. The first husband, we don't know. He's still alive. Second husband, they don't say anything about his death, and we don't know exactly what happened, but we do know that the third husband died of natural causes. And when that happened, Lori Vallow collected on Social Security, which was for Tylee Ryan. So Tylee Ryan was set. She was set with Joseph Ryan's Social Security, and she had lots of money from him. Now so that benefited Lori, right? So we have husband number three. That guy's gone, and he's got, oh no, the puppies want to be in it. So look, watch this chart for a second. I'm sorry. Tonight's one of those nights that I can't win. Wow. Okay. Thank you. I'm probably going to have people dropping off for that. But yeah, the puppies, they don't even want to be on camera. They just want to yell at me because apparently it's dinner time. So you guys are looking at this chart now. I'm going through it quickly, and then we'll get to the next portion of it. I'll probably leave it up or put another flow chart where you can see all the people and then tell you the story about them in chronological order. Right now, we're talking about Lori Vallow, which was Lori Vallow Daybell, before she knocked off Tammy Daybell and married Chad Daybell. So these are the two people that are the ones that caused all the chaos. She did cause the chaos before because this husband mysteriously died of natural causes. They never found out why. And I will have to look, and I will look if they exhumed him or not. I wonder if Joseph Ryan was ever exhumed. I know that they had suspicions because after all of this, they had to go back and check out if um, she had anything to do with it. Hence, the next clip I want to show you is her in court. She's actually going on trial for Charles Vallow. And the reason I say that is because when we go back to this clip, you're going to see that she got tired of him after she met Chad Daybell, and she had her brother, Alex Cox, who is also dead. She had him fake a death and say that this fourth husband was attacking them with a baseball bat, and he pulled out a gun and killed him. And Tylee Ryan, before obviously she was unalive, backed her mother up like it was her second nature. So, like nothing, she was laughing and smiling with the cops, and she got away with it. And all of these people are tied into it. So, we've gone through all the husbands. We got her sister here. Now, Kay and Larry Woodcock are the ones that started the hashtag where are the children once they went missing. So up until now, everybody's there, divorced, dead. Kids are still alive. Kobe Ryan moved away, married a woman, and luckily got away from his crazy mother. So now, after all of this happens, we get these two that finally meet at a convention for Chad Daybell's boring books. Now, when you hear him talk, if anybody knows, his talking is just I want to go to sleep when he talks. He sounds creepy and crazy. And actually, right before Alex Cox dies, he does a prayer for him. I'm not a person of church, but it's an LDS thing, and he does a prayer for him that is sending him off to his death. And within 2 weeks, he dies of natural causes. How does that happen? So yeah, but I do think that Alex Cox, they either gave him something or he committed suicide willingly because Lori Vallow ordered it. Now, all of these people that died were dark spirits. And we'll talk about how that happened. But right now, I just want you to see how all of this mess. And at the trial, everybody that wasn't dead was there. And she was on trial. She's on trial for him now. And she was on trial for these two, which she's Tylee and JJ, which she is convicted of and doing life. So everybody else was rooting for her. So now we're going to move to this left side of this crazy chart. Summer, Summer is her sister and was one of her biggest cheerleaders, said there's no way there's anything wrong with the kids. The news was looking for them. It was a big thing. And Janice and Barry and Summer are a family. And of course, Alex wouldn't say a word. So when everybody was looking for the children, they were already unalived and stored away in the grave digger and the terrible author Chad Daybell's backyard. Yes, he used to be a grave digger, and eventually they find the kid in his backyard with perfect graves, and the way they're buried is in a perfect grave with a board on top and rocks. It must be a ritual thing that they do in the LDS. I don't know. So I'm almost through the chart because I just want you to see everything and all the people and then I'll get back to the video and then I'll tell the story in chronological. So we got all these things going on. We still got these guys looking for them. They're already unalived. These guys, her family, and Wes wants to be on again, my dog. These people are rooting for her and it's not happening. Before they can get together, Tammy has to be unalived. Yeah, you hear that? I know you hear that. I'll bring them on so you can see them and I'll put up a bigger screen and then I'll go back to the other one. But I'm glad that you can see this chart and I'm glad. Let me pull it out a little so you can see his kids because his kids are still behind him, y'all. Oh, sorry. Oh, cancel. those are his kids. If you can see them, let me see if I'm in the way. I'm mostly not in the way. They did a Dateline special or 2020. I never can remember because it's so lifetime-ish to me. It's such a lifetime type of thing. So we got Garth Daybell, Emma, Mark Daybell, Leah Murphy, and Seth Daybell. Those are 5 of Chad Daybell's kids. He was married to Tammy Daybell for maybe 30 years, 20-something years. I'll get to that. Now, she's pressuring him to kill his wife so they can be married. Finally, he does it, and they find it. They find her dead in her bed. And again, another coincidence, like her other husband, it was natural causes. So he actually had Garth, this son, pick her up from the floor. She died of natural causes. Blood came out of her mouth. She rolled on the floor, and this guy picked her up off the floor, put her back on the bed. They called 911. She's dead. Nobody's still connected anything. And now we've got a cult following, which is a very small cult following, because this guy I call him Chud. His speaking puts me to sleep, and it's creepy. So he's got this one rooting for him, Lori Vallow Daybell. I hate calling her that. Chad Daybell, Brandon and Melanie Bordeaux, Alex Cox, #1 follower. And these people are still on their side until they find the children in the backyard and Lori's not speaking. So there you have it. I'm leaving it off with that while I play some more of the video. Let's get back to that. Thank you guys for being here and listening to me go on. And we can finish watching. He says you couldn't finish watching it. I'm not sure what you were talking about, Carly. If you tell me what you mean, maybe you were watching the episode that I had watched. So we'll finish watching it right now, and you can see the people and connect more of the dots. As long as I chime in every so often, we should be okay.
With her, and be able to get in front of her and just ask her son, just try to plead with her. Ask her where Tylee and JJ are. This can't be that hard to answer.
Colby Ryan was able to confront his mother in a very emotional phone call.
You can hide for me? Probably because you murdered my siblings. Probably why he's talking you. Maybe you should understand.
I didn't necessarily go that way.
You didn't do anything, right?
You weren't there.
You're right. I wasn't there. I was kept in check.
And one day, you will know.
Murder.
One day, you will know what actually happened.
You're right. You know what?
And we all will stand there.
Everything is right. You're absolutely right. He will convict the people who act in his name with pure blasphemy. This is funny. This is funny.
Coming up, 2 dead spouses. Chad Daybell's wife mysteriously dies just days before his marriage to Lori. Plus, Lori's ex-husband, Charles. Police and the FBI were doing everything in their power to find Tylee and JJ. Police in Chandler, Arizona were investigating Lori for another reason, the death of her 4th husband, Charles Vallow.
There's a I got in a fight with my brother-in-law and I shot him in self-defense. Is he hurt or is he alive or? Yeah, there's blood. He's not moving.
That's Lori's brother, Alex Cox, calling 911 in July of 2019, saying he had just shot and killed his brother-in-law, Charles Vallow.
No weapons? No weapons on me. All right, come on out this way.
When police arrive, they find Alex by himself at Lori's newly rented home.
I'm going to have you have a seat right here on the curb.
Inside is Lori Vallow's 4th husband, Charles, dead on the living room floor.
What happened today? How did it get to this?
Alex told the officers that Charles came after him with a baseball bat, saying it all started between Lori and Charles and that Tylee brought out a bat.
And then your niece pulls out a bat?
Well, it wasn't her. He was getting close, and she came out to defend my sister with her bat. Your niece?
Yes.
Okay.
And then she poked at him, and then he took it away.
Alex said Lori and Tylee left to take JJ to school, and it was then that Charles came.
See, now that we're having the story put together piece by piece, you got to see this big group of people and this chart of how everybody's connected. And I'm sure the police had something like that as well. I could imagine they had this board up. They didn't catch any of this. Had they caught this when Charles reported Lori Vallow, he reported her telling the police that she said that he was a dark zombie and he was going to be killed and all this other stuff. They have it on film. They might show it here, but yeah, he reported it. Had they stopped it then, none of those other people would have died. And they probably also would have never connected her to the other husband and to the other husband that he died of natural causes. Tammy would have been alive. All this stuff would have happened. So they know that they fucked up, really.
Came after him with that bat.
I turned around, and he hit me in the back of the head with the bat. So I went to my room and got my gun. That was the period.
You went to your room, meaning the room you're staying in?
Yeah.
Okay, you brought a gun with you?
Yes.
You always bring a gun?
I can still carry always.
Then Lori and Tylee show up.
Hi, who are you? Okay, just stand over there for just a second, guys.
And then I told him to put the bat down, and he wouldn't. And he came at me.
And the wife just
I don't put that bat. He wouldn't do it. He's like, and he came at me with the bat again after he'd already hit me in the head. So I shot him to stop him.
Lori's brother Alex is sitting on the curb telling the police this story, but there is no emotion in his voice. He just killed another person, but he doesn't seem fazed at all.
Then it was Lori's turn to talk to the police.
We just moved in here.
Gotcha. How long have you guys lived here?
I'm sorry?
How long have you lived here?
Like 3 weeks.
Oh, geez. Yeah, okay.
That's why the neighbors don't know us.
Gotcha.
You see that I paused it on her smiling. She's literally talking about her husband just being murdered. And she's talking about, I'm laughing because she's smiling there. She's laughing about her husband that she's been married to for over 10 years, that took care of her and raised her kids, and they adopted JJ together. And she's laughing that her husband is murdered. By the way, they found 2 bullet holes later on. So that's why she's being charged. After this, I'm going to show you the clip of her going into court because she's being prosecuted for this right now. This that we're watching, her smiling, they didn't connect it at all. They just let her walk away. Now, Alex is dead because dead men don't tell tales, right? And like I said, if there's 2 people, there's 2 people don't keep a secret, right? Unless one of them is dead. Now, there's 2 people left, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, but they did sever their trials. And there's a reason for that. She's gone off the deep end, and I think he might have come to the realization that the bullshit that he was feeding her she really believed it, and he was just trying to get into her pants, and he did. Because when you watch the trial, they talk about his Storm, his little baby Storm, which means we all know what the storm coming means. That's what they have all kinds of sexual emails or text messages going on while they're killing people. Oh yeah, Chad wanted it, all right.
Like, hi neighbor, sorry.
The story of what happened to Charles and Alex and Lori's demeanor was suspicious. An investigation was immediately launched. Larry and Kay Woodcock didn't believe it for a second.
That was the most bullshit story that I have ever heard in my life. That was a setup, a absolute setup murder for hire.
Remember, Kay is Charles Vallow's sister. She knew that Charles and Lori were having problems. Charles had recently made Kay the beneficiary to his $1 million life insurance policy, which Lori was about to find out.
She ran across, I imagine she was searching for the change of beneficiary form in Charles's file she had in Arizona. And she took a picture of it and she said, 5 kids and no money, and his sister gets everything. That was the last interaction with Lori. Ever.
Thank you. I'm having that tonight. That happens. I'm off my game tonight. Thank you for being here, though. And hopefully we can all rewatch this and laugh later on. I'll do much better later, I promise. Okay. So my whole point about this is that everything was driven by their sexual appetite, all of the deaths. Lori did believe in the LDS and being a chosen 144,000 people. I couldn't read your lips. I know, girl, right? My game tonight. Everything's I got too much going on and I cut it too quickly with my daughter. Never know what a 9-year-old wants before I hop on a live, and she wanted more than I could do in that time. So, anyway, so let's listen to them a little bit and then we can see how much more crazy Lori's become over this time, and listen to these guys.
Last communication.
Lori's ex-husband's death wasn't the only one being
I'm
investigated.
going to keep my mic on.
In Idaho, the death of Chad Daybell's wife, Tammy, was also raising suspicion.
Tammy Daybell was a 49-year-old woman in good shape. She was an avid runner, and suddenly she passes away in her sleep.
Chad and Tammy Daybell were married for 28 years before Tammy's death.
They had 5 children. They lived out in little old Salem. He held religious positions in the LDS ward. They were kind of the quintessential Latter-day Saint couple.
Together, Chad and Tammy started a book publishing company. Chad was a prolific writer, authoring more than 30 books, most of them about his past vision.
Let me tell you something about his past visions. First of all, they were bullshit. And second of all, I don't know why they call him a prolific writer. He was making about $30,000 a year. I don't mean to offend anybody, but $30,000 a year doesn't pay for anything. So his wife was actually supporting them. And then Lori came along with her thinking that she was going to make $1 million off of the death of Charles. And come to find out, she didn't get it. He changed the beneficiary to his sister. So I think really that's what pissed her off and him off. And besides there's a book coming out called Sex, Money, and Lies. And that's actually the opening statement in the entire trial for Lori Vallow and the JJ and Tylee saga, Sex, Money, and Lies. So that's what sets this off. Chad is just Chud. Peter Griffin, right? he's a cartoon, a fat cartoon character, and I can make fun of people like that.
And the end of times. Like-minded authors like Chad and Tammy's friend Julie Rowe used the Daybells Publishing Company for their books. After Tammy's death, something Chad told Julie about a vision that his wife would die now seemed suspicious.
I did ask him, Chad, do you still see Tammy dying? And he said, yes, I do.
Also suspicious, Chad declined to have an autopsy performed on his wife, and there was his behavior at Tammy's funeral.
He recited many things that were not asked for, and were concerning the details of her death. He told us what happened to her that morning. He told us that she had since been to visit him and is helping him set affairs in order, giving him direction on how to handle certain children and their future, and even where they should live, what schools they should go to. He told us all this in just the space of 2 minutes.
At the funeral, he didn't stay there very long. He was upbeat. He was talking to members of the family like nothing was wrong. It didn't seem like he.
Now, remember, he was telling people months before her death that she was going to die, that he had visions of it, and he just knew that it was coming. So he was already telling people that it was coming, and he was completely just happy and upbeat. And you know why? Because he was texting with Lori Vallow the entire time about his storm getting to come to her. They literally pulled all these text messages out. There was a whole day in trial that goes over the text messages. And while he's at the funeral for his wife, he's texting those things. Now, Carly, I pulled up a clip of the children backing him, and it was on 48 Hours and Inside Edition, but I'm pretty sure they'll just pull it off. It's a minute and 18 seconds of them saying that Chad Daybell was framed, if you wanted to know. So even though you didn't get to see the episode, you could probably just look it up. The kids today, this day, still think that their dad was framed. I don't know who he thinks or who they think framed him, but they back him, and I think that they're gonna have to be in court. One of them is the one that picked up their mother off the floor.
It didn't seem like it mattered all that much.
Most disturbing, however, just 10 days after Tammy's death, Chad was on a beach in Hawaii marrying his new wife, Lori. Coming up, Lori and Chad.
I think she did a bit of chasing. She was like a Chad groupie. And I think he likes that attention.
And the dark turn of Chad and Lori's religious prediction. Death to Lori's friend Melanie in a phone call she recorded.
Tammy had been getting weaker and sick. I begged her to go to the doctor. Her heart was failing her. She was physically falling apart, but she hates doctors, so she just passed away.
And there was something else about Tammy's death that didn't seem right.
Lori used her dead husband, Charles's Amazon account to purchase matching wedding rings. But this is 17 days before Chad's wife, Tammy, is dead. She clearly knows that Tammy is about to die.
Chad and Lori's beach wedding came just over a year after they first met at a religious conference. Lori's friend, Melody, was also there. Chad was a featured speaker.
He talked about the different visions he had of what he saw was going to happen in the last days.
Chad's visions, which he claimed started after a near-death diving accident when he was a teenager, made him a celebrity of sorts within a small community of like-minded Mormons that believed the end of the world was imminent.
I've recently released my autobiography.
Listen to him talking every time he speaks. I don't think anyone would really want to listen to that at all. He only had a few followers, by the way, and they were all women. Now, she didn't, when you ask if she sought him out, she actually didn't seek him out. She actually was looking at what he was talking about. She was at a convention and she didn't specifically seek out Chad, but she ended up at his table where he was showing off his stupid books, and he told her that they were married in a past life, which is a total pickup line, guys. If you want to get a lady and give her your storm, just say, hey, check this out. We were married in a past life, and you were Elena. You were my princess goddess, and I was your king or whatever. And we're the 144,000 chosen people. So yeah, he's so dry. Listen to this. It's terrible. I don't understand. I just don't get how all this had to happen because of these two awful people coming together.
Entitled Living on the Edge of Heaven, where I tell more about my two near-death experiences.
He would have meetings at people's homes where he would sort of promote his books. He would usually have 20, 30 people. He would just talk about the ideas in his books and what he saw in visions. And they were enjoyable to listen to, and I felt they were genuine.
The LDS faith accepts that some people have visions, and Chad let it be known to anyone who would listen that he was one of those special people, that he could see the future and the past.
According to Lori's friend Melanie, Lori and Chad had an instant connection and started communicating and seeing each other to discuss religion and Chad's visions. In December of 2018, they were featured together in a religious podcast.
We're gathering together as saints, as brothers and sisters, and preparing for the second coming of Christ.
It was obvious to Melanie Gibb that there was some chemistry between Chad and Lori, and that they had a relationship that went beyond.
So basically, she was insane. Yes, she was. I would say she was. I was gonna say quirky, insane, everybody, but she was insane because she had already killed other husbands before she even met him. So yeah, she was. But she's way out there on a limb, and if you hang out here and listen to all these other things and the clips I gotta show you, I also have to tell you the storyline of her growing up. It's kind of unbelievable about how these things went down in chronological order. We're seeing it in a way, and we're seeing the people, but you just wouldn't think that she is who she is today by the way she was raised and who she was around. I just don't understand.
And just they're doing podcasts together and discussing the end of the world.
Over the next few months, Lori was also starting to have visions, and Chad told friends that he had lived several past lives on different planets and that he and Lori had actually been married before.
The way he described it was that his veil was more open than it had been, and he started remembering some of his past lives.
Then in early 2019, Chad and Lori's beliefs, according to friends, started getting darker and stranger, including visions that certain people around them had turned into zombies, their bodies taken over by evil forces. One of those people was Lori's husband, Charles Vallow.
Her religious stuff is gone way off. Just way off.
Charles was so concerned about Lori's behavior, he contacted police, telling officers that Lori believed he, Charles, had been taken over by a zombie named Nick Schneider.
I tried to support her as much as I could, but it's gotten really, really bad. Lately, she's had a break. Says, I'm Nick Schneider. I've taken over Charles's body, and Charles will get killed. I'm going to kill you. You're going to be murdered today or tomorrow. I can do it. I'm out there with my priesthood with my power. She has priesthood blessings.
Charles also told the officers that Lori had told him that she had special powers and that in a past life she had been married to the angel Moroni, the figure seen holding a trumpet on top of many LDS temples.
She thinks she's married to Moroni in the past. You think she's what? We're married to Moroni at the top of the temple.
Angel, LDS.
And she knows when the second coming is happening next year, so does a prophet.
It's scared crap out. Okay.
6 months.
This is where the story takes a complete turn. So when you see Charles Vallow, which is married to Lori, a lot of this could have stopped right then and there. And yes, it was brought up a lot by many of her family members after she was convicted and they stopped talking to her, that Lori Vallow was always the beauty queen, the prettiest one of the family, and she was very sexual. And many of them do speculate, and I do believe that her and her brother not Adam, am I saying the right one? Alex, I'm sorry. She has a brother named Adam. I don't want to say his name. Alex and her had somewhat of a sexual relationship when they were younger, and they experimented with each other. And that's why he followed her around, and he was her protector. Every single person that was in her family that did grow up with her said they had a strange relationship and that it may have been sexual, although nothing was confirmed. You will hear that, and they have so many podcasts out there. The brothers actually have a podcast called Silver Linings, and it's her two brothers. I can't remember. I know it's Adam is one of them, Adam Cox, but I don't remember the other guy's name because I've heard this story too many times to hear about her childhood, which I'll tell you in chronological order right after this. I'm going to give you the breakdown of like who she was before, and she was a beauty queen, and she won pageants, and everybody did love her. She was the it girl at one point that was a really good mom by the eyes of everybody else. And at some point, I'm not sure what clicked in her, but you're going to see as this story progresses that she gets crazier and crazier and crazier. It doesn't stop ever.
Months later, Charles Vallow was dead. Coming up, Alex Cox.
A lot of people believe that Alex Cox is the family hitman. Lori and Chad would decide who needed to die, and Alex made it happen.
As the bodies start piling up, one person seems there in the Yellowstone photos on September 8th, and he was also there the last time JJ was seen on September 22nd. This is doorbell camera video of JJ running, captured on September 17th. The next week, on the night of the 22nd, Lori's friend, Melanie Gibb, was visiting Lori. She brought her boyfriend, David Warwick. The three were recording a religious podcast when Alex Cox walked in with JJ.
He was staying with Alex, and Alex brought him home and carried him to bed.
But the next morning, both Alex and JJ were gone, and the explanation that Lori gave was bizarre, saying her son had turned into a zombie.
She said that he was being a zombie and climbed up on the cabinets, climbed up on top of the fridge, smashed her picture of Christ down, and then climbed up onto the upper cabinets and got between the top of the cabinet and the ceiling. I asked to see him, and she just said that he was out of control. So she had Alex come and get him.
Remember, it was Alex Cox that killed Lori's fourth husband, Charles Vallow, claiming it was self-defense.
He came at me, and I shot him to stop him.
There was another incident possibly connected to Alex Cox in early October of 2019. Melanie Boudreau, Lori's niece.
Here it comes, Juror 13. Now we're going to start intertwining some of the people that you saw on the chart that I showed you earlier. Melanie Boudreau was one of Lori's followers. She was her niece, but she was also a follower, and she believed anything Lori said. She followed her around, and guess what? Guess what she did, y'all? She told Melanie Boudreau that her husband, Brandon Boudreau, was starting to become dark. So now Alex has to get rid of the dark people. And not only that, everybody, just in case they don't say it in this, Melanie Boudreau's kids started to become dark on the dark scale, according to Chad. So her kids were this close. If you can't see my fingers, very, very close to dying. So the only reason Brandon didn't die is because Alex's shot was a bad shot. Had I shot that shot, I would have made it. Just a little bragging here. I can shoot a gun, and I don't need a long rifle, by the way, but he was using one and he still missed. Thank God for Brandon. And nobody's been prosecuted, and I don't think that they will. And I'm actually really surprised that Melanie Boudreau didn't get in any kind of trouble or repercussions for this, and for having her kids being so close to becoming dark. Yeah, it's a whole family of psychopaths and followers. That's why they call it the Doomsday cult mom murders, because it started to become a cult that was mostly women following Chud. And yes, I'm going to call him Chud because, just look at him. I can't stand that man.
Who moved to Rexburg at the same time as Lori and Alex. Her soon-to-be ex-husband, Brandon, says somebody tried to kill him.
911, where's your emergency?
Someone just shot my window.
Someone shot at your vehicle?
Yeah, and it hit my window, it shattered my driver's side window.
Brandon had dropped off his kids and he was coming back from the gym to his house. And as he pulled up to the curb, a shot came from a nearby Jeep that was parked on the opposite side of the street.
The bullet hit Brandon's Tesla, missing his head by a few inches. The shooter's Jeep with Texas plates was registered to Lori Vallow's ex-husband, Charles, who at the time had been dead for more than 2 months. Brandon says he didn't get it.
You see how none of this was connected yet? And I want to tell you, too, that they tried to kill Tammy the day before she actually died. It was Alex, took a shot at her. She was coming back from her, I don't know if it was a yoga class or a dance class. And she was a healthy 49-year-old lady, by the way, that didn't die of natural causes because they exhumed her and they found that out. That's why Lori got convicted for JJ, Tylee, and Tammy. But that same thing happened to her. So one thing, I'm going to make fun of Alex because he's a terrible shot. And number two, Tammy almost died the day before she actually died. She thought it was a paintball gun. She saw somebody come up to her car. She was getting out and going into the house, and somebody took a shot at her, and it hit her car, and she thought somebody was playing around with her. It must have been like a long rifle with a scope or something on top. You know how a gun looks that has like a scope or something? It could look like a paint gun. So she thought someone was playing around and shooting a paint gun at her. So she almost died from the same thing that Brandon almost died from. So like I said, bad shot. But we are glad that for Brandon's case, it was a bad shot. Poor guy. He's pretty good looking too, by the way.
A good look at the shooter, but believes he knows who it was.
He believes that Alex Cox was the person who fired that shot. He knew that Alex Cox was kind of the family hitman, and he just fairly quickly came to the conclusion that it was Alex Cox.
Around the same day Brandon was shot at, Lori was seen with an unidentified male loading a spare tire and what appears to be a vehicle seat in and out of a Rexburg storage unit. Also in October of 2019, another suspicious shooting, possibly tied to Alex Cox. 10 days before Chad's wife Tammy mysteriously died in her sleep, she called 911 to report that she'd been shot at in her driveway by a man wearing a mask. She thought maybe it was a paintball gun, but now authorities investigating Tammy's death aren't so sure.
While Tammy Daybell believed that someone tried to shoot her with a paintball gun, the investigators thought it was actually Alex Cox sent there by Lori and Chad to murder Tammy.
12 years before Alex killed Lori's fourth husband, Charles, he served 3 months in a Texas jail for attacking Lori's third husband, Joseph Ryan. According to the police report, Alex Cox used a stun gun on Joseph Ryan and threatened to kill him while accompanying Lori during a child custody exchange. Alex would actually joke about it years later during an open mic comedy routine.
You ever had something that you knew was the right thing to do, but it turns out that later on it was a felony?
Alex Cox was a possible suspect in Charles Vallow's death, Tammy Daybell's death, the shooting of Brandon Boudreaux, and the disappearances of both Tylee and JJ. Of course, the connection between Alex Cox and all of these people was his sister Lori.
They had a very, very close relationship. When they moved to Rexburg, he was in the same apartment complex. And we know that he also believed the same sort of religious things that Lori was believing.
Then on December 12th, 2019, another 911 call. Someone else was dead.
911, where is your emergency?
Hi, I need an ambulance. I have a older male here named Alex. He's
Okay, y'all. Now you're seeing this. You see the connections. All these people, they can't have him alive because what would happen is when the police actually do connect it, this guy would sing like a canary, I'm sure. And maybe he wouldn't because he was the protector, but he probably would because they would go for the death penalty. And I do believe after watching the entire trial, if anybody is in chat right now and that's actually chatting and listening to this, let me know if you saw the trial. It sucks because we didn't really get to see it. We only got to hear it. So I actually listened to it the whole time, and yeah, he definitely would have turned on her and gotten the death penalty. So I do truly believe, and I don't think they're going to say that on this, that he's the one that killed the kids. His cell phone pinged in Chad Daybell's backyard where a couple of feet, or maybe more than a couple, maybe 100 feet from where the burial site was. And hopefully they show that on here when the cops come and the 2 phone calls with Lori and Chad. Lori's already in jail and Chad is sitting outside of his house while the cops are digging up his backyard. And in his monotone voice, he's saying, "They're here again. They're digging up," or she's like, "In the house?" And he's telling them, "No, in the backyard," basically. So listen to this. We're getting there.
He just passed out here on my bathroom. I think he's passed out.
Okay, you think he's unconscious?
Yeah.
On the same day that investigators were exhuming the body of Tammy Daybell, Alex Cox mysteriously ended up dead. The official cause of death was a pulmonary embolism. The children were still missing, and now one of the main suspects in their disappearance was gone. Coming up, a major break.
Throughout the investigation, detectives and investigators have recovered what's believed to be human remains.
Chad Daybell under arrest after Tylee and JJ are found buried in his backyard.
They dug a little bit more around the round object, which appeared to me to be the crown of a head.
While I have it paused, like I said, Chad was a grave digger. So he absolutely pre-dug those graves. He pre-dug the graves, and they also found a hair on the duct tape on JJ's mouth. I know it's gruesome, trigger warning here, but in court we didn't get to see it. But when they found his body, he was all wrapped up. He had duct tape just wrapped around his mouth and his face, and he was just like mummified in a perfectly dug grave by a man that was a grave digger. And guess what? They found Lori Vallow's hair on the duct tape. So let's keep listening. And yes, at one point, every channel was covering this. I wanted to cover it now because I still have time to tell you what's next. We're not even there yet, guys.
JJ and Tylee were either dead or hopefully they were in some sort of end of the world bunker being taken care of by Chad Daybell's followers.
Friends say Chad and Lori believed that not only was the end of the world coming, but when it happened, they would be leading the 144,000 chosen ones mentioned in the Bible.
So the book of Revelation has a chapter in which it talks about how when Jesus comes back to the earth, or in anticipation of that, then there will be 12,000 elders or members from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. And so when you do 12 times 12,000, that's how you get to 144,000.
Chad and Lori also believed that evil spirits had taken over the bodies of people around them, calling them zombies. Lori even told her friend Melanie Gibb that her own children, JJ and Tylee, were zombies. According to Melanie, Tylee had overheard her mother talking about it on the phone.
Tylee hears her mom say that she's a zombie, and according to Melanie Gibb, Tylee responds, "No, Mom, I'm not a zombie." How heartbreaking, because Tylee knows what it means to be a zombie in her mom's twisted head. It's incredibly sad.
Then, on June 9th, almost 9 months to the day after Tylee was last seen, Rexburg police and the FBI served a search warrant on Chad Daybell's home. They'd searched the property before during the winter when the ground was frozen. Now they were back, interested specifically in the backyard.
I observed the evidence response recovery team and also cadaver dogs working the entire backyard. So
I want you all to know that this was a pretrial hearing. This was not the actual court case. Lori was way too out of it to even have them film, because what I'm going to show you the clip next, it's just only about a couple minutes. I just want to show you her walking in the courtroom, smiling and saying hi to the prosecutor. She was flirting with her attorney and just way too out there. So they couldn't have people in there. But we did hear this, and yeah, her brother and her zombie mom, her brother and her were, it was speculated. I don't know for sure, but they were intimate when they were younger. And yeah, that's very disgusting. But he thought he was her protector from there on. So he would follow her around. Eventually, he married one of the LDS followers of Chad Daybell, who was Zulema. And she testified. They weren't married very long, but she testified against Lori Vallow as well, to telling them that they had an extremely weird relationship. So yeah, it was crazy. I should, before we finish the rest of this, I should give you a quick synopsis of what happened. While you can watch this, but I just want to tell you quickly and show you a picture of the people that died, them, and then I'll read this, since everybody kind of knows the story to this. Yeah, he stayed obsessed with her, and I honestly believe, well, I think he took a pill and killed himself. I think and it didn't come up, but it said natural causes. I think it maybe said aneurysm or natural causes, but that also happened to Tammy Daybell. So whatever it was that they used was undetected. I'm not actually sure what it was. And yeah, let me see how much longer we have in this, because we're pretty close, and then I'll tell you, because I don't want to lose this one. I'm going to tell you a story after this, and then show you this crazy. No, I already cussed. This crazy bitch, Lori.
So they worked the pond area, and then they had marked off other areas inside the backyard.
Something stood out in the pond area on the north side of the property. Fresh sod on top of several rocks. Beneath the rocks, some paneling.
As soon as they removed the paneling, I could smell the odor of a decomposing body.
It was JJ. The 7-year-old's body was buried in Chad Daybell's backyard, wrapped in plastic and duct tape.
And then as I cut through the white plastic, that's when the, possible human hair started coming out onto my hands. And that was the point where we determined this is human remains.
Then they started digging in a pet cemetery. They found Tylee, dismembered and burned.
They had located what would appear to be a mass of burnt flesh and charred bone.
Earlier that morning, before the remains were located, Chad Daybell was watching the evidence response team in his backyard when he received a call from the Madison.
All right, everybody tune into this real close. I really want you to hear this call. He talks kind of low, and you know how he talks really monotone. Listen to this. This is just such a telltale sign in it, and it's going to show you what's coming for him when his trial comes. Now, keep in mind, they severed trials, and he paid for his attorney. So he has John Pryor as his attorney. That's a really good attorney in that town. He gave over his house, which his 5 children, well, 4 of them, one of them moved out and is married. All of his children lived in the house. They live in it now. They're all grown up, but they live in it. They took over it when he went to jail, but he gave it to his attorney. That goes to show you, instead of taking an attorney like Lori did, he didn't give a shit about her. He severed ties with her. He hasn't talked to her. Well, they really can't, but he doesn't look at her or anything. Every time she's tried to get his attention when they were in court, he won't look at her. He ignores her. He won't talk to her. And he got a totally different lawyer, and he severed their trials. So that goes to show you that he is not loyal to anybody but himself. Listen to this.
In county jail, his wife Lori was calling to say hello.
Are you okay? So there's such a property.
The house right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why are they in the house?
No, the property.
Are they seizing stuff again?
They're searching. I love you so much.
Thanks, I love you. Should I try to call you later?
I don't know.
After the phone call from Lori, Chad decided to take off. He was picked up and arrested by investigators immediately after they found the first set of remains.
Now both are in jail facing murder charges. Lori ends up being the first to go to trial. There were no cameras allowed inside. The courtroom was packed, and Larry and Kay Woodcock were there every day.
The defendant, Lori, Vallow, Daybell.
So whoever watched this trial, like myself, was really dedicated. Yeah, he knew he was cooked right there, right then and there. Did you hear that? They had to kind of show the words because he talks so low and meek. But if you followed this case like I did, it was a little bit boring because I didn't get to see the people and see how she was acting. But this is what the case, or the trial, I should say, looked like every day. Chad Daybell, however, is going to be filmed, and the judge is going to control the cameras. And I'm going to show you next what's happening next with him, and they're going to actually show the view of how it's going to be in court. So you're going to see what Chad's trial is going to look like when we all watch it, because we all are true crimers here, right? All of us are all crimers, crime junkies, and we're all going to watch the Chad Daybell trial, I'm sure. So listen to this. This is how the trial went.
Used money, power, and sex, or the promise of those things, to get what she wanted.
She was a kind and loving mother to her children. The evidence will show she had a particular interest in religion in the end of times.
The defendant told others that with the help of Chad, she could rate people as light or dark. And they evolved to, well, a person could be so dark or a spirit could be so evil that the person actually becomes a zombie. You can't cast a zombie out. But a common theme was the body had to be destroyed.
In order to make sure a demon doesn't come back, the body has to be destroyed in some way.
Correct.
Okay, so that's Zulema Pastenis, guys. That's the one that married Alex. Chad was getting tired of having Alex around Lori all the time. He was getting tired of him being there and being a third wheel. So he introduced one of his followers, which was Zulema, and they got married really quickly. I don't know if it was like a 2-week thing that they met and they got married, but Chad was like, get this man away from her. He's just always in my face. He didn't want a third wheel. Now I'm going to answer your question, Juror 13. How they knew to dig back there was because everything was on their cell phones. Chad and Lori, for some reason, didn't realize that they were going to, at one point, get their cell phones, and they did. Everything is laid out in text messages, you guys. Now, the reason they knew to go in the backyard is because the pings went into his backyard. So the ping, okay, so Chad Daybell sent his wife a message before he died. So she was alive when the kids died already. He was planning on killing her and planning on marrying Lori, but he wanted the kids gone. So he texted her and said, because they had a pet cemetery, he told his wife that there was a big raccoon and that he was going to be in the backyard burying that raccoon. So when they pulled the text messages, they knew that pet cemetery, raccoon, dead, digging something, that means something. So they checked the pings, and Alex Cox was back there. He should have never even been at Chad's house. And so they went to the property from the pings and the text messages, y'all. They knew at this point what was going on. They were following them when they were in Hawaii and all the other stuff. So that's how they found out.
Burning is one way.
Correct.
Is there anything about binding?
I believe so.
So she had told you prior to the move to Rexburg that JJ2 was being attacked by demons.
Correct. Right before she moved to Rexburg, she said that Tylee had been possessed by evil spirit or a demon.
We determined her cause of death to be the result of asphyxia, and her manner of death to be homicide.
Did Lori indicate whether or not she thought it was okay that they were engaging in intimate relations?
She did. She felt it was according to God's will.
You don't get married 4 weeks after you just buried your wife of almost 30 years. You just don't do that. And we found out it had only been 2 weeks after she had been buried.
From Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow, I need so badly to just gently kiss you for hours. It would likely lead to other activities. It would luckily lead to nakedness. Just grab me by the storm and I will follow you to the ends of the universe.
Are you aware of what some of the phrase "grab me by the storm and I will follow you to the ends of the earth" meant?
The word storm is the name they had given to Chad Daybell's penis.
The jury took 2 days to deliberate, and
that's what I was talking about, was calling it the storm. That's what they would call it, the storm. So they're trying to relate everything to God, her being his goddess and who she was going to marry. All of this was related to God. And for some reason, he had a storm. I don't think it was a very big storm, everybody, but Lori liked it for some reason.
when they reached their verdict, you could hear a pin drop inside the courtroom. Lori stood up with her attorneys on both sides of her, but still didn't show any visible signs of emotion.
Is Lori Noreen Vallow not guilty or guilty of first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan, of Joshua Jackson Vallow? Answer: guilty. Is Lori Noreen Vallow not guilty or guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tammy Daybell? Answer: guilty.
Before Lori was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, she had something to say.
Jesus knows me. And Jesus
Oh my God. I had another clip to play this, and now we're getting to listen to it. I'm going to back it up a little because I want to turn it up. This is what she's telling the judge and the whole courtroom before she gets sentenced for killing 3 people, 2 of them her beautiful children that she raised their entire life. This is what she's going to say. Yes, a lot of people do remember this that followed the trial intently. This is insane.
Tylee Ryan, of Joshua Jackson Vallow. Answer: guilty. Is Lori Noreen Vallow not guilty or guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tammy Daybell? Answer: guilty.
Before Lori was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, she had something to say.
Jesus knows me. And Jesus understands me. I mourn with all of you who mourn my children and Tammy.
In addition to the 3 life sentences for the deaths of Tylee, JJ, and Tammy, Lori Vallow also faces charges in Arizona in connection to the death of her husband, Charles.
Something was taken from us and from our friends and our family.
All right, everybody. So that was enough of that because I still have more to go. Now we know what we're looking at. I want you to see her flirting with the people. She says hi to the prosecutor that's gunning for her to get another life sentence. Unfortunately, the death penalty's off the table for her, and that was due to a technicality. At this point, the Arizona trial, they're not going to do the death penalty because she's already doing 3 life sentences. So I'm going to share this picture while I tell you the story from start to finish real quick, and then I want to show you what's next with both of them. But I did want to do the entire story because I know there was people that didn't catch everything in it. There was so much that came in bits and pieces, so you all didn't get to see everything. But yeah, there's the true crimers that know everything, of course. All right. Let's see how you can see that. That's pretty good. All right, so I'm just gonna put a picture in the background so you have something to look at. Um, those are the deaths. You can see the connection. The two both were arrested, and everybody that has to do with those two people are dead. How does that happen? There's no coincidence to that. So, um, yeah, the tragic saga of Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. This is very tragic because it didn't need to happen. So, Lori Vallow, a name that now resonates with all of you. You've all heard her name, and yet you're still watching this. Her name was actually Lori Noreen Cox. That's what she was born as. She was born on June 26 in 1973 in San Bernardino, California. I used to live in San Bernardino, California. I grew up in Los Angeles, and it's in the mountains of that area. So it's like LA County kind of area. Her life took a dark turn and she entangled in a web of disturbing events, religious extremism, and tragic deaths of her own children. So we're going to delve into her life a little bit, her marriages and her children. You just saw that, but I'm just going to run through it and talk about it in my own words. So in 2006, Lori married Charles Vallow. Their marriage appeared to be happy, and together they raised Lori's daughter, Tylee Ryan, which you saw the whole chart earlier. Tylee Ryan was born September 24th, 2002, and that was her daughter from a previous marriage, which we saw the father. She had two different fathers, and then JJ was adopted. JJ was adopted in 2014, and Lori and Charles did that together. I make sure my microphone's on before I keep going. So what happened was Joshua Vallow was special needs. He had some autism, and he was being raised by the grandparents. So what happened was they wanted him to be raised by parents that were vibrant and had life in them with other kids. So Joshua JJ Vallow was a grandson of Charles's sister. So it was actually Charles's family, and had autism. Lori was patient with him, and they thought that she would be the ideal mother for JJ. So the grandparents ended up giving him to them. And then in 2017, after all of this happened, about 2 years later, Lori's relationship with her children changed. Friends even noticed that a shift in her when she started reading about the Doomsday end of the world, and no other than Chad Daybell. So yes, she probably did seek him out a bit because she did go to a convention, but she didn't come on as strong as he did. Chad Daybell is known for writing fiction and preparing for the end of the world. He lived in Rexburg, Idaho, which is in the middle of nowhere, where they found the kids. Now, in 2018, Lori actually met Chad Daybell. They connected and began doing a religious podcast together. That's even too bad for me to play here. It's too horrible to listen to, and it's not hard to find, but you just can't really. It just is terrible. I can't listen to the whole thing. We listened to part of it earlier. At the same time that Lori met Chad, Chad was also married to Tammy Daybell, and they were raising their 5 children. Now they're all grown up. So Lori and Chad started discussing concepts like zombies and referring to people's souls who were replaced by dark spirits. Lori started calling her husband, Charles Vallow, a demon. In January of 2019, Charles expressed concern to the police, as you saw, and Lori's behavior started getting more bizarre, stating that she believed she was a god and she was prepping for the end of days. Now, Charles didn't align with her beliefs, and so she started getting farther and farther away from him. And then she met Chad Daybell. So July 2019, Lori's estranged fourth husband, Charles Vallow, was shot and killed by her brother, Alex Cox, who claimed self-defense. Now I'm going in chronological order so you can see where we are, and then I'll show some clips. In October 2019, Tammy Daybell, Chad's wife, died under initially recorded natural causes. Her body was later exhumed, revealing she had died of asphyxiation. A month later, September 2019, Lori's children, Tylee and JJ, disappeared. according to the world. We don't know exactly when they disappeared, but around that time. Tylee was last seen alive at Yellowstone in a picture at the national park, while JJ was seen alive in Idaho. Amid the disappearance was a string of suspicious deaths, including Charles Vallow and Tammy Daybell's demise. The police were from Rexburg, a small town, so they hadn't connected all of that yet. If it weren't for the grandparents and the whole Where Are the Kids campaign, I don't know what would have happened. In February 2020, Lori was arrested in Hawaii and charged with the desertion and non-support of her children. So at this time they were still missing, and she was telling them that they were hiding away because of the Doomsday and they're safe. Now, February, we fast forward to June 9th, 2020, police discovered the remains of Tylee and JJ buried in the shallow graves in Chad Daybell's backyard. Lori and Chad were charged with first-degree murders of Tylee, JJ, and Tammy. Okay, so I told you a little bit about that. Let me tell you a little bit about Chad. Chad was born August 11th, 1968. Wow, he was a Leo. Nothing like any Leos I know. If any of you all follow the horoscope thing, I'm pretty big on horoscopes and like personalities and such. And he was a freaking Leo. He sure didn't have any charisma. I'm a Leo, guys. And you can tell, especially if you meet me in person. I do have a big personality. Okay, so he was a Leo somehow, born in 1968, and he grew up in the Mormon faith. He authored over 25 terrible books. I'm throwing that in, and worked in a publishing industry, which was his. He only made about $30,000 a year, so his wife supported him because we know $30,000. I think I spend that on sushi and going out to Disneyland and kids' birthday parties through the year. That's not enough for anything. So his faith took a turn towards the fringe apocalyptic beliefs, and then now we hit the storm and I don't mean his storm, in 2018. This is when all of this happened, or it began, because 2020 is when they already got arrested and the kids' bodies were found. So Lori and Chad's beliefs came together, and they centered around the doomsday scenarios of 144,000 people, but it included concepts like zombies. So both of them were at some point excommunicated from their churches, because you can't do that in LDS. You can't start a cult, and you can't have beliefs outside of theirs. Their actions led to the deaths of Tylee, JJ, and Tammy. We know that. Now, Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow got married, but the circumstances of their union were shrouded in darkness the whole time. It didn't last long. Tammy Daybell's death overshadowed it. Now, court proceedings. Here we are. Lori Vallow was found guilty on all charges related to killing her children, and we saw that. Chad Daybell's trial, guess what, guys? It's scheduled for April Fools, April 1st, 2024. And his attorney, John Pryor, is doing anything to get him out of the death penalty. He's facing the death penalty, everybody. He's trying to say that they ran out of money. He's trying to say he's not death penalty qualified, which he's not, but that's his problem because he's a private attorney. If anybody knows about the law and attorneys, you have to be death penalty qualified if you are appointed attorney. So if you're an attorney that somebody can't afford an attorney and you're appointed by the state, you have to be death penalty approved or certified, and he's not, but he was also hired. And he got $500,000. He got the house. So the saga still continues, and now we get to see Lori Vallow in Arizona court in her hearing, which didn't last very long at all. So back to me, back on the big screen. All right. I like that. Everyone's got the true Libra, and I like to see people's, I love to see when they're born and all that kind of stuff. It's really cool. So what's next for Lori Vallow? This is what's next for her. It's right here. I'm going to show you. And then we'll talk about Chad's, because his is going to be the big one that I can't wait to see, y'all. All right. Watch carefully. She said hi. She's looking at the cameras too. She keeps looking at the cameras, and she never once looks at the lady next to her.
Good morning, Keith Terry and Denise Suki. On behalf of Ms. Vallow, who's the president of Mary in custody. Thank you, ma'am. Tell me your date of birth.
Lori and Chad Daybell, 6/26/1973.
All right, this is time set for a complex case schedule.
She gave her birthday.
I've received the complex case joint case management report that indicates discovery.
I'm gonna go back one more time. That's all I really want to do is watch her walk in. The hearing doesn't say anything. It's just talking about the pre-trial, and it doesn't. You can't hear it too much. But let's watch this one more time, and then I'll go to Chad's thing. Oh my God, this lady's. She says hi. Oh my goodness. Look at her looking at the cameras, guys. And she's flirting with her attorney the whole time.
Attorney K, on behalf of the state, for the record, the Mexican and victim are appearing virtually.
Good morning, Keith Terry and Denise Suki. On behalf of Ms. Vallow.
Watch. When he sits down, she starts talking to him and looking at the camera.
All right, this is the time set for a complex case scheduling conference. I've received the complex case joint case management report that indicates discovery is ongoing and a large amount of discovery is about to be disclosed, to approximately 88,000 pages of discovery. I imagine that's going to take some time for the defense to go through.
All right, guys. This doesn't really say much. There's no discovery issues. Let's see. We can watch it for a minute. Watch her. How she flirts with him. This isn't very long. Sorry, it's hard to hear.
My intention today was to set another complex case management conference in approximately 60 days. Prior to doing that, though, was there anything from the state that we need to discuss?
Nothing at this time, Your Honor.
Look at her. She's smiling, guys. She's happy. What is she happy about? She can't stop smiling.
No, Your Honor.
All right, we'll waive your appearance for the next complex case management conference. We're going to set
Thank
that
you. Thank you, Judge. I appreciate it. April 24th at 8:30 a.m., y'all. That's her next appearance. But she doesn't have to go.
That time we'll talk about where you're at and going through all that discovery. I imagine trial date may not be realistic based on the discovery, but we'll discuss it at that time. Thank you. Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right, we'll be recessing that one. Thank you.
That's it. Look at her. She's looking at the cameras. She wants us to see her. I'm surprised she didn't kiss that guy's ear.
All rise.
What do you think about that, everybody? Hold on, let me make sure we don't hear anymore. She's still looking at the camera. I stopped it, but let me pause it so we don't hear it anymore. Oh boy, what do you think about that, huh? And her face is falling, everybody. That she was filled up with Botox. She had the Botox, the filler, probably a little bit of face pull. She's got the saggy neck now. Her face is completely dropped, but she's still trying to look cute. She's got the Kool-Aid lipstick and the yeah, she does. I don't know how you do the curls in there, the rolled up magazines. I don't know. I've never been arrested or to jail or any of that stuff, so I only know what I see on TV, but I can imagine the other lady was side-eyeing her like, what the fuck? Yeah, she was. And you could tell she's recovering from chemo or something. She did not look at her once. Not once. She literally toilet paper roller. Yeah, I would imagine. Um, she was looking at the cameras, and I don't know if she was trying to look so that when Chad sees the court hearings that he sees her, but she flirted with her attorney the whole time. And I never ever have seen anybody walk up to the prosecutor and say hi. That was the funniest thing. I don't know why I found it so funny, but oh man, that I can't even. All right, so let's see what we're gonna expect with Chad's court with his April Fool's date. April Fool's, man. I would want to change that date, guys. All right, and it's going to be recorded, so we're lucky. Let's watch. Nope, that's not it. What to expect with Chad Daybell.
Tammy Daybell married a grave digger named Chad. That gravedigger started writing books about religion and his own visions and prophecies. He started to get a following. One of his followers was a woman named Lori, who was married to her fourth husband, Charles. In 2019, in a span of less than 5 months, Lori's husband, Charles, was shot and killed by her brother, Alex. Lori's children, JJ and Tylee, disappeared.
It was a big day out in Idaho. I mean, a really big day when it comes to the upcoming trial of the so-called Doomsday prophet, Chad Daybell. But let me begin here tonight. I love cameras. I love cameras. I mean, that's part of the reason why I do what I do. I get to hang out with a camera every night, right? There's one right there. There's another one over there. There's another one over there. But even before we all had these and everyone in the world walked around with a camera, I mean, growing up, I always had a camera in my hand. So, I mean, that's part of my DNA. I love cameras. But the place where I really love cameras are inside the courtroom, where we let the sun shine in and let the public see what is taking place in all of justice. I think it's so important. Obviously, self-interest. I work at Court TV. I get it. But even before I worked at Court TV, I was watching trials on TV. So before I was like an employee, I was a fan. And then I understood how important it was. And as a young lawyer, I would watch as many trials as possible.
This sounds like all of us content creators, huh? We're all starting out as true crimers, even though he was a lawyer and now he's doing this. But I swear, some of us could be lawyers with as much information as we know about the courts and the law and what goes on. Yeah, I could never go to jail, y'all. I know that you get to sleep as much as you want and you get to call people all day and ask them for money to put on your commissary. I get that. And most people do. They have pretty good family and friends that send them money. If you do, I would imagine it would be a cakewalk. And you get your own cell phone, you get a tablet, all of that shit. Amazing. Oh, but I still like my house better. Let's listen to Vinny tell us what's going to happen with Chad.
And to see, all right, how are they doing this? How am I supposed to do this whole thing? If I couldn't be in a courtroom during the day, at night I could watch what was happening inside those courtrooms. And I think what it really does for our system is gives a level of transparency. And with transparency comes trust. And it should be just standard that you're able to see what's happening in your government. Especially folks like who may be busy during the day or have other responsibilities and have to do things and you can't get your.
Hey, I think he's speaking to Anthony. What do you think, Carly? I think he's talking to Greeno and Marv with the Delphi case, right? For us that can't get down to Delphi and the ones that want to go, but they can't. We want to see these trials streamed, and Chad Daybells is going to be. So if Vinny can get on with himself, I don't want to fast forward him because I do appreciate what he's saying about us being able to watch it. But Come on, Vinny. We see you.
State over from where you are, we should be able to see what's happening inside. I think every courtroom should have cameras. They should be streaming what's happening. But it's not quite there yet. But Court TV, we're doing our part. And let's talk about the Doomsday couple. Let's talk about this story and why cameras inside those courtrooms, I believe, are important. The community was invested when 2 children went missing, JJ and Tylee. Totally invested. Obviously, the families are invested. Families aren't all where the trial is happening. And the community as well. They all have a stake. And by the way, in every criminal case, it's not the prosecution versus the defendant. It's the people versus whoever the defendant is. The allegations is someone has committed a crime against the public. So why shouldn't the public get to see the trial to find out what happened? To ensure that our system is working. And if it's not working, let's see it so we can fix it in whatever way we need to fix it. Trust, transparency, and the truth. Our courtrooms, our trials are supposed to be a search for the truth. But how do we know whether or not they got the truth if we can't see it? So, in the trial of Chad Daybell, ladies and gentlemen, I can announce tonight that we will see the evidence. We will see the evidence because today, Judge Boyce ruled that he's going to let the sunshine in. Take a look.
Requests here, the court is determined or has made a determination.
Before I listen to what he has to say, and I love this judge. He was Lori's judge as well. He's just such a level-headed guy. And I'm glad we're not listening to the whole hearing together because some of you guys might be bored. I'm never bored of this. But listen to how fair and awesome this guy is.
That in order to provide adequate access, the court is going to permit that the trial be broadcast while it occurs with certain restrictions.
There you go, folks. You will see the trial of Chad Daybell. You will see it. You heard Lori Daybell's trial. We covered in depth here on closing arguments, but you will see the trial of Chad Daybell. It's going to be a much different trial. Much different trial. You're going to see a much different defense. And for the first time, you'll be able to see the evidence. So what I want to do this hour is kind of take a look at what happened here. And I want to begin by talking about some of those big witnesses and those big moments and important moments in the case that will help this jury figure out the truth of what happened and figure out the truth of Chad Daybell's participation or lack of participation in the murders. And helping me tonight, we've got a great panel joining us from Salt Lake City, Utah. Private investigator Jason Jensen and boys.
See, these things we can play pretty well. I like to comment on them, of course, because this is my channel. But I love having these people on there that are experts and that know about either LDS or they're lawyers and they've been through this or they know about the trial. I love that. And yes, it should be for everybody to see. They should never have something nowadays in this day and age that we can't see. Because what if there's an injustice, guys? There could be an injustice. So, for instance, Lori Vallow, we only saw drawings and she could come back and say somebody did something to her. Maybe a lawyer flirted back with her, whatever it may be. That could happen. And guess what? Now we're going to do a retrial and have to listen to all this evidence for the families. And so everybody should have cameras in the courtroom. And guess what, y'all? Right now, Brian Koberger is going to. He's been trying to fight for it. And I believe the latest is that he's going to have cameras, whether he likes it or not. We get to see that ugly mug.
Boise, Idaho, trial lawyer, former Idaho Attorney General Dave Leroy is with us. Los Angeles, forensic psychiatrist, body language expert, Dr. Carol Lieberman. And also in Salt Lake City, Utah tonight, private investigator, religious cult expert, and the author of Deceived, Mike King. Great to see everyone tonight. Thank you for joining us. I want to go through some of the big witnesses, the big moments, what we can expect, and how it all relates to Chad Daybell and in trying to prove the case against him or him being able to defend himself against these accusations. Let's begin with, there's two Melanies in the case. We'll begin with Melanie Gibb. This was a friend of Lori's, I believe a friend / perhaps follower at one point of Chad Daybell, an important member of this group that had all these beliefs. This is what she looks like. You will see her on the witness stand. Let's take a listen to a piece of her testimony from Lori Daybell's trial.
Did Lori ever indicate to you whether or not she and Chad were engaged in an affair?
She would just share that they were intimate.
Was this while Charles was still alive?
Yes.
Was this while Tammy was still alive?
Yes.
Did Lori indicate whether or not she thought it was okay that they were engaging in intimate relations?
She did. She felt it was according to God's will.
And did she tell you, ever expand on why she believed it was according to God's will?
Yes. She explained that because they had been married in multiple lives and they had a mission together, that it was okay.
And when we talk about her having a mission, did she talk to you about her mission to lead the 144,000 in relation to her children?
She indicated that she was a part of that group, the 144,000. And at some point, everybody in her family would pass on just because of tribulations. At some point, she shared that with me, probably in the very beginning.
All right, Jason Jensen, I'll begin with you. Melanie Gibb. She's kind of in the middle of everything here. So if you're...
Everybody here knows about the case. So before we talk about this and we have all these level-headed people, I want to say she should have been charged for something. She was in, they're going to tell you about how she was completely in the middle of this and she knew what was going on. She might not have known that they killed the kids or where the kids were, but everybody, I want you to know that she was in the mix of this stuff and she saw Chad Daybell's list of people that were turning into zombies and when they were on the level of pain that he wanted to cause them and who was supposed to die. She knew all this and she never went to anybody and told them. So I don't like her at all. I think that Melanie should have been prosecuted for something. I think she should have been part of the conspiracy, at least on some level. But I think they needed her when she got into the interrogation room. She spilled out her guts. Not only did she do that, she also started recording phone calls, and Lori caught on to that. But this lady should have been charged for something. Unbelievable. Take a listen to this.
You're trying to prosecute Chad Daybell, which is what the purpose is going to be here in this case, is to get him on the hook here for these three murders as well. How important Melanie Gibb respect?
Well, it's important that Melanie Gibb's testimony is used to show that there was more than just a relationship between Chad and Lori in the context of a murder, but to show that he was the primary influence for her beliefs that led to the children's death, regardless who actually was responsible for the deaths themselves. But this is all a cult influence led by Chad Daybell.
Dave, your thoughts about Melanie Gibb here, because she is one of the witnesses in this case who has spoken to Chad and Lori, spent time at Lori's house. She was there. She knew about this this adulterous relationship that predated the deaths of their spouses. How significant will she be? And are there issues for her on cross-examination?
She's going to be very important in this case, partially because she links in the 144 and the overarching philosophy that led to the children's death, arguably. And secondly, she is going to testify, as she just did for us, about the premarital relationship, the adulterous relationship. Remember here, there are new charges against Chad that we have not seen any proof on yet. And that's namely the death, first-degree murder of Tammy. And Chad alone is charged with that. And he's charged with some very weak language, aiding and abetting, advising, consulting. And that kind of thing is going to require being tied in, I think, by somebody like Melanie that shows he had personal.
Do you all notice that Chad Daybell doesn't really move in court? I watched the hearing the other day in the entirety because John Pryor's so freaking funny. He just cracks me up. He's such an asshole, and he doesn't know. He's never taken a case like this. He's from Rexburg, Idaho, and he doesn't know how to cover a case. So he tried to get off of this trial. I want everybody to know that if they don't. He went to the judge, Boyce, and said, I can't do this. Well, he wanted to get off of it. He used money as an excuse, even though he was given the house, which is plenty of money. Then he used the excuse that he's one man and he can't get everything ready and there's no way he could do it. And he asked to be removed. So this man that's like, this is ridiculous. And this is why I think Chad should just take a plea deal. He's on the line for the death penalty. And if he loses, he's going to get the death penalty with a lawyer that's never tried a case even close to this. When you listen to this hearing, if you guys want to go back and listen to this hearing from maybe last week or so, when they give the April 1st, 2024 trial date, the questions he asks goes to show you that he's never tried a trial of this magnitude whatsoever. He can't even figure out about the witnesses and when they're coming. He says, well, if one witness comes, how are we supposed to schedule this witness that comes into town? I mean, these are amateur questions, you guys. I'm not a lawyer and I could figure out how to schedule witnesses coming at the same time and cross-examining them and all this other stuff. These were amateur questions. Chad Daybell is going to get convicted and go to the death. He's going to get the death penalty, everybody. That's my predictions. And when the trial comes up, we'll watch it together. But if it gets all the way to the death penalty phase and he gets tried and he doesn't take a plea, which I want to let you know for the people that don't know, you want to know something? He did offer, he said he would take a plea deal with the prosecution. And do you want to know what that plea deal was? It's ridiculous. Here's what he said. His lawyer told the prosecution they were willing to take a plea deal with them. And here's what it is. He will plea for time served. He will get up in court and say that he did it and plead guilty and take his charges and be a felon if he gets time served. That's the only deal that he's going to take, knowing that he has a death penalty on the line and his lawyer has no business trying this case. Unbelievable, right?
Love interest in this from the very start.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, to me, Melanie Gibb has been the one person who has been, as she's spoken on television as well, she's done interviews, but a significant witness in Lori's trial as well. What do you think about her level of credibility and her ability to withstand whatever John Pryor's going to do to her on cross-examination?
I think that she's rather questionable. I think that her motives, her feelings about their relationship and so on have not really been explored enough. You know, I think that she felt competition with Lori and was not happy that Lori got Chad instead of her. So I think really part of her will be more favorable to Chad. Although of course, she's not happy with him either because he picked Lori. But I mean, those are sort of the underpinnings, these undercurrents of what her feeling, besides what actually she experienced and what she thinks. Those are the undercurrents.
All right, Mike King, I want to play for you some testimony from Zulema Pastines. And she, Alex Cox's wife, not for a long time, but at the time that he died and sort of in the middle of all of this, she seems to be another one of the followers. But she was married to Alex Cox, who I think all of us believe was like the hitman, who was the one who was actually murdering people in all of this. There she is in her police interview. Let's take a listen to some of her testimony from the trial.
Did Lori ever talk to you, or?
I want you to know the reason why they're playing this again, or I don't think that you heard this portion of it, but the reason they're playing this, just to recap, is that she's going to be one of the witnesses for the state at Chad Daybell's trial. So they're recapping what's going to happen next and who the witnesses are going to be, and then they're getting the panel to weigh in on what they think. And I didn't even know that Melanie Gibb, I knew she knew Chad Daybell, and she introduced Lori, and it was an immediate spark. They were going to tear each other's clothes off from the moment they met. There was a sexual chemistry there. I don't know why, because when you look at Chad Daybell, yeah, he looks like a fat cartoon character, but that's what happened. And I didn't realize Melanie Gibb wanted him for herself. I had no idea. I just learned something new, y'all.
Lori and Chad ever talked to you about how long they expected JJ to live?
Lori had said that he was going to have a very short life. And then in the meeting that we had at Lori's house in early August
of 2019,
he, Chad, said that JJ was going to have a very short life, that he was going to, the reason why he was going to live a short life was because he was going to come right back as Colby's child.
And to your knowledge, did Alex believe this?
Yes, but Alex believed everything they told him.
All right, Mike King, a lot of testimony about they. So it seems you may have to tie Lori and Chad together as a unit, but that's not the way it's going to play at trial. Obviously, he's going to try to get away from her. What are your thoughts about Chad Daybell being the so-called Doomsday Prophet, and some of the witnesses who will be called were some of his followers? How does that play?
I think it plays very well to teach the lesson that these coercive groups like this one, where they have coercive mind control, are wonderful at getting people to buy off in the ideology. And it's the boiling a frog kind of a thing, Vinny. It doesn't happen overnight. Slowly, piece by piece, they get people like the group that we're seeing investing in the belief system. And once they start investing in that belief system, they then can't admit the fact that, hey, maybe I was duped, maybe I was wrong, maybe these are a bunch of crazy people. And it gives me this flashback memory of dealing with a ritual murderer who murdered a number of people. His brother, they came up with the same ecologies, and they started broadcasting or prophesizing that they were going to commit these murders, or that these people were going to die before they did it. And of course, there's always one who seems to be the one who is the voice of whatever this God is they believe in. And then the other comes along, and they're the arm of the God's wishes, and they're the one that gets to fulfill it. And somehow, as a group, they get everyone to buy off on this ideology.
You know, as Dave pointed out, Jason, the big difference in this trial is going to be a lot more focus on Tammy Daybell and her murder. Let's take a listen to some of the testimony from Samantha Gwillem, who is Tammy's sister.
Did you learn that Chad had been remarried?
Yes, we learned it was actually 1 month to the day of her burial is when I found out about it.
Did you later learn when he had actually gotten married?
Yeah, because I told my husband to find out because Chad was still speaking, he was talking to my husband at that point, and I said, you find out when he actually got married because I feel like that's very quick, even for somebody who's grieving. And like, you don't get married 4 weeks after you just buried your wife of almost 30 years. You just don't do that. And we found out it had only been 2 weeks after she had been buried, and we were devastated.
Jason Jensen, I see her as a witness that is kind of like the reality check of like, this is not normal. What is happening here? The time between the death and the marriage and this, there is something wrong.
But do you remember when they were showing those $35.99 rings? That's going to come up again in Chad's trial. They were looking up their wedding rings before she had even died. So think about that. Lori Vallow got convicted and she wasn't even in the house. She was in Hawaii. She had a freaking alibi. When Tammy died, she had an alibi. She was looking up rings for $35.99, but she wasn't in the same state. She wasn't there. She got tied to the text messages that they were talking about and looking up rings, and she still got convicted for Tammy. So could you imagine Chad's trial? I think we know what's going to happen. He's got 2 dead kids in the backyard. I don't know if I should have said that. 2 unalive kids in the backyard, and his wife unalive in the house, and they had to exhume her to find out that she was probably asphyxiated. I think we all know what's going to happen here.
Wrong going on here.
Yes, if this was just a basic murder, remarriage plot instead of all this mixed up with cult, beliefs, that happens all the time where there's a death and all of a sudden remarriage, and you're thinking that this is related to an infidelity that led to this because they didn't want to lose their alimony or they didn't want to have to, fight for custody. They wanted just the wife out of the way so they can move on with their new relationship. So that part of it seems very traditional in some of these other kind of murder plots that are all convoluted with cult beliefs and the afterlife.
One of the most fascinating witnesses from Lori's trial, who I believe will have to testify here in Chad's trial as well, was Audrey Baratiero, who was a member and probably the most loyal follower of Chad Daybell. Take a listen.
You thought Chad Daybell is telling me about my past. He can probably predict the future, too.
Yeah.
Because he was writing books about the end of the world. He was telling people who they were in prior lives, great people, not losers. And that gave you a feeling of, I'm somebody, right?
Yes.
All right, David Leroy, how will John Pryor cross-examine these followers, right? The followers of his client. The Audreys of the world, the Zulemas of the world. Will he attack them, do you think?
Well, I think this whole trial will be about the Doomsday prophet, Chad, trying to say that he's under the influence of the Doomsday mom, Lori. And so John may concede that we have a prophet on our hands, but he's a lovesick man who somehow was drawn into Lori's sphere rather than remaining in charge of both prophecies and the actions of which he's charged. They're going to try Lori as much as John Pryor can in this case, and by cross-examination of some of these follows, he will introduce those themes if they're put on early.
All right, folks, our panel, they are staying with us for the hour. When we come back, we'll talk about the death penalty, another big issue today, plus coming up next hour.
In Jacksonville Beach, Florida, Jared Bridegan was shot and killed in an alleged murder-for-hire plot.
So to answer your question, Sadie's mama, yeah, it doesn't mean anything, but they hadn't suspected it right away, and when they did, they were already off in Hawaii, and that's a good question. I haven't heard anything about them asking for repayment yet, but he used it all on going to Hawaii, getting married, renting a place. None of them had jobs at the time, and Lori didn't get that $1 million that she was supposed to. And remember, she got charged with fraud because after JJ and Tylee. JJ was special needs autistic, and Tylee had a pension from the dad that died. So she was still collecting their money. That's the only money she had. No $1 million. Chad got the 400,000 right away. He actually called in about it and got it. And yeah, I never heard anything about that. And if they sue him, he really did. He really did spend it right away, and good luck getting that back because he already got rid of his house. And yeah, maybe he'll be like Carly in the kitchen cooking food and doing dishes at the prison to pay them 35 cents an hour back. I don't know.
So on count 2, the charge you were convicted of, the first degree murder of Tylee Ryan, you are sentenced to the custody of the State Board of Corrections to serve the maximum allowed sentence of fixed determinate term of life imprisonment with no possibility of parole. On count 4, the charge of the first degree murder of Joshua Jackson Vallow, you are sentenced to the custody of the State Board of Corrections to serve the maximum allowed sentence, a fixed determinate life imprisonment sentence with no possibility of parole.
Lori Daybell started out as a death penalty trial. Death penalty was then wiped off the table because of something that the prosecutor did or didn't do or was supposed to do, didn't get done, and the judge eliminated it. And now Chad Daybell facing the death penalty, but his attorney's making arguments against it today in front of the judge. First, though, let's take a listen to the prosecutor arguing why this should be a death penalty case.
The potential imposition of the death penalty is in no way linked to his waiver of speedy trial. I know the defendant tries to argue that it is because the co-defendant, by not waiving her speedy trial, ultimately ended up making an argument, and a successful argument, to get the death penalty removed from her side of the case. The defendant at that time didn't opt to ask to have his motion to sever reconsidered. He didn't opt to ask to reconsider the motion to continue the trial. He didn't at that time try to join in a motion arguing in any way he was being unfairly treated or penalized for waiving his right to a speedy trial. Instead, her case went through trial. He had the benefit of observing that trial and has now brought some motions based on his observations of that trial. And only now is trying to bring this as a reason to have the death penalty pulled from his case.
So now I want to play for you, and this is from a prior hearing, though, where John Pryor made one of his arguments against the death penalty for his client, Chad Daybell.
And I want to talk a little bit about gender stereotyping. And in gender stereotyping, I touched on the statistics that show a vast number of defendants. When there is a male and a female defendant, and you're dealing with cases of this magnitude, there's an overwhelming majority of the time that the male gets convicted and is sentenced to death, and the female is afforded a lesser sentence. I'm deeply concerned that in having both of those people here at the same time, that we're going to have some difficulties with that.
Okay, Dr. Carol Lieberman, let me ask you about if this case goes forward as a death penalty case, how does that change the dynamic for people, everyone involved, like from the defendant to the jurors?
Well, first of all, I think what he just said is true, that there is this bias, unconscious bias, thinking, that the man would be more deserving of death, or he was more responsible for the death than a woman, a frail little woman. How could she couldn't have been as much responsible as a man.
Bullshit. Do you hear me loud and clear? Bull fucking shit. The kids were found in his backyard. Yes, we found a piece of hair on duct tape. I bet you my hair is on some duct tape around the house. My daughter's always playing with duct tape and my hair's everywhere. So guess what? Bullshit. She can say all she wants, but those kids were in his backyard, and he made a phone call to his wife, or texted her. That's how they got it, telling them that they're burying a big raccoon in the backyard. Bullshit. he deserves a death penalty for having those kids in his backyard, even if he didn't touch them, which I'm sure he did. He hated both of them.
Of course, this heightens things if it were to be a death penalty case. But I do think, regardless of the technical reasons, I do think that it's fair that they both face, that he doesn't face the death penalty. That, of course, something could come out during the trial that would show that he is more responsible. But on the whole, I don't think that I think if that was taken off the possibility for her to get the death penalty, it should be taken off for him too.
You know, Mike King, as we were looking at those photographs, which were evidence in court during Lori's trial, of the couple getting married down in Hawaii. Prosecutors wanted to put her to death. Now they want to put him to death. How do you see this issue playing inside a courtroom in Idaho?
Yeah, can't you? Every time I look at this picture that's on the screen right now, it just drives me batty, Vinny. I think there's a couple of things to consider in this case. Number one, Lori got away with getting out of the death penalty, but this case also involves the murder of Tammy, which is independent and still could be a death penalty case. I would suspect, and I guess that's something that I need to kind of learn and understand a little better. But this thing boils down to the fact that there was planning, there was preparation, it was premeditated. It's clear through the revelations that were coming out and him saying for weeks in advance that she too was going to die early. How come everybody around them is scheduled to die early except for the two of them? The fact that they're married 2 weeks after, I think, is all going to lead toward this. And I think it kind of sets them apart in a small way, but I think it is a little bit of a challenge because you can't give it to one and not the other in most of our thinking. And so this is going to be really interesting to see what they respond to. And I really loved hearing the AG talk a little bit about this case, because I keep going back to the fact that I think the prosecution needs to be really cautious when they introduce the ritualism and the ritual crime portion of this versus the elements of murder, because that's what this is about. And then the fact that they were religious zealots is aggravating factors that should go into the sentencing, in my opinion.
Dave Leroy, what do you think about, she doesn't get the death penalty. If he's convicted, at this point, prosecutors want him to get the death penalty. Is the fact that she didn't get it, is that something that should be considered, or is that irrelevant to the discussion of how this trial should proceed against Chad Daybell?
Well, during today's hearing, the judge pointed out that the state confirmed that the death penalty was levied against both of these individuals well before Lori's trial went forward, well before she elected to proceed immediately, etc. But in a death penalty case, every argument, every objection is a United States Supreme Court argument. And this idea of comparative culpability, while it doesn't have any specific legs in Idaho law, nor in this kind of situation precisely, as far as I'm aware, has it been presented any place around the country. It will no doubt wander its way through the Idaho courts, through the federal courts, and maybe be offered up to the United States Supreme Court on a comparative culpability issue. However, as has been discussed, there are some very distinct elements here. Number one, Chad was the one who decided not to proceed immediately, thereby relieving that discovery issue. He didn't make a record at the time, and he is charged with separate crimes. So all things being equal, I think comparative culpability will probably go away in this case if the judge rules that the death penalty remains on the desk, as I believe he will, and if the jury somehow, after two phases of a trial, would convict him of that.
Jason Jensen, as to Tammy Daybell, what are your thoughts about her death? Was it?
Before he gives his thoughts, I'm going to give mine about Tammy Daybell. And I'm curious as to why they're not trying Tammy Daybell's murder with Tylee and JJ as well. I don't know enough about the behind the scenes. Maybe they do. But Mike King also said that he was curious as to why they're not doing the same with Chad Daybell that they did with Lori, Vallow, Daybell, whatever. That they gave her Tammy, JJ, and Tylee in the same trial, and she got convicted for all three of them, and she wasn't even in the same state. So I wonder why they're not trying all three of them together, which means that if he gets death penalty, I'm thinking that maybe someone will go lenient on him. But if he doesn't, or he does, he still has to go back to trial for Tammy, because he's the one that was in the house with her, last saw her, called 911, said that it was natural causes, and is going to be convicted, or at least on trial for Tammy. I'm sure he's going to get convicted, but why not try all three of them? So now we're going to have to go through this again. Let's see what they have to say about it, because That confuses me too.
Alex Cox, the so-called hitman, or do you think Chad Daybell himself could be found as the person who actually took the life of Tammy?
Well, clearly, Alex Cox may have been the shooter. We know from the evidence that there was a couple attempts, at least one attempt beforehand, that the gun didn't go off right. It malfunctioned. So if he's the shooter, who's the benefactor of the murder? And we know that with all the prediction and the planning, it clearly all comes back to Chad himself being responsible for the murder of his 30-year-long married wife. So clearly everything's going to come back to him, and with him being the center of this cult lifestyle with all of these predictions of all these other murders, Alex Cox himself ends up dead, and that's a questionable death. We don't know if it was a murder or just the weirdest coincidence on the John. But if all this comes back to Chad, obviously he's in a more egregious situation where the death penalty could apply to him and be an exception for Lori's situation. We know during the pretrial phase, she was having competency evaluations, she was having breakdowns, so she may have not been given the death penalty by the end of the run anyway.
All right, folks, when we come back, it's a question we've been debating and talking about since all of this began. In this relationship, Chad and Lori, as you can see right here from the evidence inside the courtroom, they look happy together, but was one the leader and one the follower? Because if you recall, when it happened, I was a little surprised by the words of the prosecutor, but at Lori's trial, the prosecutor said she was the mastermind in all of this. What will happen at Chad's trial? What will the prosecutor say there?
Because of her manipulation and deception, she would find somebody that could manipulate, like he was manipulating Stevie too. He tricked her, she tricked him. They tricked each other so well that they were their equal, opposite, evil match for each other. Right. Like they got exactly what they put out. You know what you put out comes back to you. I think that's what they got for each other.
But everybody that's been following this case and knows Lori Vallow is still very much loyal to Chad Daybell to this day. She still wants to be in touch with him, and she never once threw him under the bus. So never once would she let her lawyer say that Chad Daybell was the one that was leading this thing. And I'm not even gonna like act like that's not gonna happen in his trial. He's totally gonna throw her under the bus. And from what we're already hearing at the pretrial hearings and all the motions that John Pryor's filing, he's already saying that she was the leader and throwing her under the bus. But wait until the trial comes. They're going to throw her under the bus hard. Just watch and wait. That's going to happen. Listen to this.
Particularly the federal case law and Pierce alludes to the fact that a prosecutor cannot, in one instance, sit there and tell one set of jurors a year ago or whatever, 8 months ago, say one thing to one set of jurors and stand up in front of them and say, Lori Vallow was the one running the whole show. Tell that set of jurors that, and then turn around in Chad Daybell's trial that's going to occur starting hopefully in Ada County in 4 months and tell them, oh, well, I know I told the jurors in Lori Vallow's trial that Lori was in charge and she was the one driving force behind everything and she was in charge. But you folks here at this new jury in Ada County in April and May, I'm going to tell you something different. I'm going to tell you now I've decided that now Chad is the one who was doing all of this. And it was all Chad leading the conspiracy. It was all Chad who was the leading force and he was dictating everything. They're not allowed to do that and the federal case law supports that.
Great point being made by John Pryor. And remember, I'm a former prosecutor. Our job is to seek the truth, and the truth is justice, okay? Seek justice, which is the truth. That's the way it works. That's the way it works. So if you say something and make an argument, you need to believe that that is the truth. You don't make arguments that you don't believe are the truth just to get a conviction. Then you're no longer a prosecutor. Defense attorneys can do that. Their job is to represent their client. They have no connection or obligation to the truth. A prosecutor, that's your whole job. That's your mission. Ethically, morally, and I believe legally. Take a listen. This is what John Pryor was talking about. Rob Wood in his closing argument at Lori Daybell's trial.
See, they're already throwing her under the bus. no hesitation at all. All they want to do is get out of it, and there's no loyalty, and she still has loyalty, which shows you that her mind is still out there. I know she's culpable, but she's all messed up, and she's still in a delusion of this whole LDS and the world ending, and she thinks that these walls are going to crumble because it said that the prison walls are going to crumble and she's going to walk right out. She still believes that. I truly believe that. Listen to this.
Lori manipulated Alex Cox through religion. She manipulated Chad through emotional and sexual control. They manipulated their friends through this use of religion. Lori Vallow is telling Alex Cox what to do. In these messages, you never see Alex tell her what to do. He's telling her what to do. She's telling him what to do. Lori uses sex to manipulate Chad. And Chad seeks confirmation from Lori repeatedly.
So that argument was clear. So Dave, let me ask you, can prosecutors come into court and say that Chad was now the leader? He was the one in charge of this conspiracy?
Well, of course, the state denied that the thrust, the fair interpretation of their argument was as the defense asserted. However, there is apparently a 52-page transcript of those arguments. The judge actually pointed out today to the prosecution that he will expect some degree of consistency in argument about these facts. And John Pryor jumped right on that at the very end of the hearing on that motion and said, well, Your Honor, may I use the 52-page transcript of the argument in evidence in Chad's case? And the judge declined to rule on that. So we will expect some consistency, and we will expect some twisting a bit by the state to explain that what they meant to say was what they didn't quite say, or what they did say can be interpreted another way. But consistency will be required. This court has already generally suggested by its comment today.
Yeah, and I believe ethically a prosecutor should not be talking out of both sides of their mouth. They can't. I mean, defense attorneys are allowed to. I mean, it's a whole different obligation, I believe. Dr. Carol Lieberman, this relationship is everything, right? Chad and Lori. Do you believe that Lori was manipulating Chad, or do you believe Chad was manipulating Lori? Who is leading who through this sick conspiracy?
Well, as you may recall, I have said, during Lori's trial, that it was a folie à deux, that it was a shared psychosis. And the things that were the folly, the psychosis, the crazy part, was both the cult, the religious issues, and also the sexual drive for each other. And I think, one of my books is called Bad Girls, Why Men Love Them and How Good Girls Can Learn Their Secrets. And I talk about men who are vulnerable to bad girls as sitting ducks. And Chad fits very well into this category of sitting ducks. And Lori, a bad girl, saw that and got her hands on him. And I do think that she was primarily the more of a manipulator. I mean, he did want her admiration and so on, but I think she was the more active manipulator. And, if they play that, which I'm sure, of course, they will, that video of them in Hawaii, the number of times that they played that is going to just seal the deal against him, just like it did for her. When people say that, yes, it is infuriating to think that while they were enjoying themselves and having sex and getting married and all of that, they didn't care where the kids, well, they knew where the kids were, but and they got rid of all the people who they felt stood in their way of them going off into the sunset, and that is just repulsive.
Mike King, your thoughts about the relationship and who's in charge?
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Lieberman. It's the two of them, and one doesn't take away from the other. The prosecution has got to go back to the initial stages of this thing. Number one, Lori was out there convincing Alex to beat up Joe Ryan, and Alex kills Vallow. Those things are really clear. But what they're not talking enough about, in my opinion, is the fact that Lori wanted to meet this self-proclaimed prophet of God who was speaking at all these kinds of end of world seminars, and that there she then connects with him. And yes, he probably was just overwhelmed by the attention that he was getting, but she was there because they believed that he was a prophet and he was leading it. And then they become this powerhouse of gasoline and fuel and fire, and together these decisions were made. And they can separate it out and go back to Tammy, that somebody had to make the decisions on Tammy. You can buy off that Lori may have convinced Alex to continue to do things and kill the kids and be in charge, but when it comes to Tammy Daybell, they've got to be able to say that Chad Daybell, it was his wife, his home. He was in the room. He set his son up to fall for this thing and walk in and discover the mother. All of these things are going to be behaviorally really important in suggesting that this guy was in control. Was he in ultimate control? I don't know, but he was in control equally, in my opinion. And there was two oxen pulling that cart.
Jason Jensen, I think she was obsessed with his books, and I think he was obsessed with her looks.
That's a good point, Vinny.
We're almost getting there, everybody. I appreciate everybody that's hanging in here. I see people coming in, coming out, but I also see the people that are here the whole time. And I want you to know I'm not going to always cover things that everybody knows about and everybody's heard about and it's fresh and yeah, you've heard it before and who cares? We already know. But I do want to have this on my channel. I want to have it in the archives. I have so much more. I didn't think I was going to go 2.5 hours. You should see how much more I have. I have 2 jurors that were on the trial that talked. One of them was an alternate. I have much more footage. I have powerful footage of some of the closing arguments. I have all kinds of things that I didn't even get to show because we're at 2.5 hours. So I appreciate you all hanging in. We're almost done. And I think it's so important to show these people talking and what they think about it because it does mean a lot. I'm not an ex-lawyer or a prosecutor. I'm not Mike King who knows about cults. He's like an expert in cults. So hopefully one day, if you guys keep on liking, subscribing, sharing, I get my hours up. I talked to Marv. I've talked to Greeno. I'm going to collaborate with those guys and probably others, get my hours up. And once I do get monetized and have a bigger channel, I promise you, I make a promise to you right now that I am going to have people on here that do have really good backgrounds and that are experts in these things, whether it's people that have been in prison or a certain prison that can tell us about it, or hey, I could dream even Mike King, right? Once I get credible in enough hours, I'm going to have these people on my channel. So I'm putting them on my channel now because I want the credibility. I want you to know that I'm sticking to the story that I believe is happening. That's happened. That's going to happen. And I am not into conspiracy theories. I'll give you my opinion, but I never want this crazy conspiracy theory because I might look a little bit crazy, but up here, I'm not. I really can see things for what they are. So let's finish this up, everybody. I appreciate you all.
What I see is, that this was the making of a power couple. She wanted to live his dream of being the one at his side while they're making all these prophecies and going to the afterworld. And this was a team effort. So oftentimes, like where you got a king and queen in charge of a kingdom, sometimes the queen makes the decision and the king enforces it. I think that this was a mutual beneficial relationship that everyone around them had to suffer.
Yeah, it's amazing though. When the end of times comes, I think we will look for a couple sitting by a pool in Hawaii to lead us. That's where I'm looking. I mean, we need someone in a bikini and someone with like googly eyes to lead. I mean, okay.
All right, we can't watch that, and we're not going to. We've been here for 2.5 hours. Everybody's been so patient with me. Miracle Hearts, those are great ideas, and they're not just ideas. I always have big ideas, but I'll tell you right now that I have talked with a couple of people that are going to start collaborating with me that already have a nice community. These people are so loving and great. They've showed me some things, and you're going to start seeing me collaborate with them. We're going to do dual streams. So we're going to be on each other's channel, talking to each other, having different ideas, talking about it, not just showing clips and really having good conversations. But right now, since I'm sitting here by myself and I don't have these experts or the credibility, you guys will eventually learn my credibility and what I know and what I've learned over the years of this. This is why I'm on the channel. And when you see me talking to people that do have the credibility, you'll understand that this channel can be much bigger. And very, very, very soon, I am talking next week, I am going to collaborate with, I won't even say who yet because I don't want it to not happen, but I am going to collaborate on the Elijah Vu case. And we're going to dual stream it. And the person that's doing it is actually out there this weekend looking for Elijah Vu. At this point, they're looking for his body. So if you go back to my channel and you watch the 2 videos that I did of Elijah Vu, of him being missing, it's been 10 days, 10 or 11. Today, maybe the 11th day. There's no way that he's alive anymore. They're doing a search. I am going to collaborate with the person that's going out there and going to have pictures, maybe doing live footage. We're going to show real pictures, real footage, and talk real case details. Right now, I'm talking to myself and you guys, so I don't have anybody to bounce off. So I have to have these experts on and show you that my channel is going to be about the facts. And yeah, we'll take opinions, and I appreciate all your opinions. I will definitely put up conspiracy theory things that people say, and I'll try to debunk them if I can in the nicest way. I'm not going to be an asshole like some people and just start calling people idiots. I respect every single one of you and your opinion, and I just want you to know that I appreciate every one of you, and we are going to have the guilty of crime day oneers. There's not very many people, so it's going to be easy for me to do. Carly and I have talked about it. I'd like to make some hoodies because I love hoodies, black hoodies, and I'm going to do something with the guilty of crime logo and then call you the day oneers. So all you day oneers, that's going to happen at some point. There's not that many to count. I can see who's here and I can re-see the chat. So I'll be asking you for, an address to ship to, so forth. I'm getting a new intro and a new outro that Anthony from True Crime Investigates is doing for me. It's really nice and professional. He's helping me do my background. So my channel will form into something that's going to be a lot more interesting if you guys want to keep following me. So I just want you to know what I'm about. And I care about every single one of you. I care about everybody in the cases that I'm covering. And that's what I want my channel to stay like. So I promise you, you can have a conspiracy theory. I'll entertain it and we can talk about it. And I can agree to disagree with you all. So we've been here 2 hours and 36 minutes. And every one of you, I appreciate so much. So you have no idea. My channel's it's got a lot of views. It might not have a lot of likes on all of them, but I've got hundreds of watch hours already for only being around for a month, and lots of likes, especially on my shorts. My shorts are just killing it. So I appreciate you all. Happy Friday night. It was such a chill night, just hanging out with you guys. I love you all, and I won't forget the day oneers. I promise. Everybody have a good night and have a good weekend. And guess what? I'm going to be back tomorrow. I believe it's 1:30 p.m. And I'm talking about a case that I bet you all don't know. If you look at my shorts, I'm giving you a clue. It's the Elijah case that's a cult leader. I have not seen this before. This guy is absolutely insane. So good night. Take a look at my channel and see what's coming up tomorrow. I'll post it on my community page. 1:30 p.m. We're talking about a cult leader, sex. I can't say the R word, but he thinks he's a cult leader. It's a black guy. I'll give you a hint. That doesn't happen too often in cults. You don't see an African American cult leader like this. So check out my page. Stay tuned tomorrow. I love you all, and good night. And I won't forget you. Promise. Good night, Carly, if you can hear me. Good night, Sadie's mama, Miracle Hearts, everybody that's here, Juror 13, everybody. Thank you. Good night, my day oneers.